We move on now, though, as Russia said that its army has seized a new village in Ukraine's central Dnipropetrovsk region, accelerating its claimed advance into the key industrial area. Russia has also reportedly taken control of the Yanvoskoye Sichnev settlement as well in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Russian forces have recently claimed to have captured territory in the region for the first time since the start of its offensive in 2022. While in the past week, Kyiv has denied any Russian presence in the region. Dnipropetrovsk is not one of the 5 Ukrainian regions that Moscow has publicly claimed as Russian territory. In a set of demands issued to Ukraine during talks in Istanbul that failed to yield a breakthrough, Moscow demanded formal recognition that these regions were part of Russia, and Kyiv has repeatedly ruled that out. Amid the ongoing tensions, President Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff is set to travel to Moscow before the US deadline to Russia to end the war expires. Well, joining us to discuss these developments, there's lots to cover. Shruti Dasgupta, an international affairs expert, joining us live from New Delhi. Shruti, as always, a pleasure to have you. Let's look at these reports of Russian expansions into Ukraine. We mentioned there are 5 regions which Russia sees as its territory, but the Dnipropetrovsk region isn't one of those. How significant are these advancements?
Greetings, Joshua. Thank you so much for inviting me. I think it comes from the fact that it is called the Donetsk People's Republic, and they prefer to have the Dnipropetrovsk region as part of theirs. And Russia is basically doing its job. It's put in a meat grinder there. They're advancing way into territories of Ukraine to ensure that the war can come to an end fast, and it is costing Ukraine not just face in terms of political circles, lots of military losses. I believe they demolished the command center of the 128th Brigade there. There were loss of lives and injuries. So it's a bigger positioning that they're saying that we're not going to be limited to what Ukraine claims or what are the 5 territories that we've placed in the peace talks. If you come to the table and agree to it, you'll face lesser losses. If you do not, you will lose more than what you can actually bargain with.
Yes, Shruti, of course, Ukraine's response, and we've heard this throughout, is that the territory is all theirs and they don't want to concede any. But alluding to the point that you've just made, with 3 direct talks taking place in Istanbul and leading to no real progress in terms of a ceasefire or at least a temporary truce, do you think that concessions will need to be made from Ukraine if any deal is to be agreed in the short term?
Well, any concession from Ukraine is something positive that Russia would accept. But Ukraine is not alone in this war. As you know, this war is NATO's war against Russia. And any kind of concessions they end up making, it makes Russia look bigger than NATO. And that is not something they can politically afford to have. Their anti-Russia policies are very strong, and their posturing regarding NATO bases is very singularly directed towards the Russian agenda. So they would not want Ukraine to submit, despite in 2022 there was a signed spring treaty with Russia between Ukraine and Russia at that time. That peace treaty was also violated by Zelensky. And so basically peace is not on the table for Zelensky or Ukraine, because they have to fight it out to the last man, it seems now.
Yes, and Shruti, we've just mentioned, of course, the fact that Steve Witkoff is headed to Moscow for further talks, potentially with Vladimir Putin. He's had several rounds of direct talks already. This in the midst of a clear deadline set by Donald Trump, trying to push Russia towards a potential peace deal. Do you see anything coming from Witkoff's potential meeting with Putin?
How do you talk peace when you have positioned your nuclear submarines in a more appropriate position where you can threaten Russia? Does that posturing lead to war, or does it lead to peace? This is the question that Putin will be asking Witkoff and the other people with him. What exactly are you asking of us if you're giving weapons? The German, I believe there was a statement out by Germany that that the Patriot missile systems possibly would be accessible to Ukraine as terms of long range. They've already, I think, in 2024 used a Storm Shadow against Russia that was provided by US and its allies. So NATO and its allies have been very, very strong against Russia, and Russia has withstood everything. They can throw it and then the kitchen sink. So Putin is going to be asking Witkoff the very same questions, that now that you've put in the N word, and they've made it a three-statement response to the nuclear submarine repositioning, where they've called it very emotional, where they've called it not very effective to Russia, and they have managed to showcase Russia as a more responsible global force as compared to USA right now, where every word is measured and put out. So Witkoff is going with his hands tied behind his back because Trump managed to rattle a few cages that he couldn't afford to.